They liked the balance that they had in race.
Casey Kane, we congratulate him, his third career pole.
It's all three Hendrick Motorsports in the front.
There's a few movers and shakers out there. Right
Carl
now.
Edwards free falling for a couple of victory lane is Joey Logano.
Get the inside line on who's fast and who's last before setting your NASCAR fantasy race team lineup this weekend. This is the Inside Line on MRN.com, presented by Hercules Tires. Now, here are your fantasy experts, Robbie Mays and Tyler Burnett.
It's a post-Daytona edition of the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show, and we will not have Tyler Burnett in studio with us today. I know you're disappointed. Please keep watching. I'm Robbie Mays. This is Rich Culbreth, my old partner on this show. It's been a while since it was just you and me on this show, Rich.
It feels like old times. Robbie, you were talking about Tyler. I always wanted to say he's on assignment.
He's on assignment, yeah.
He's not taking vacation. He's on assignment this week. That's the reason why I'm in here. But yes, it does. It feels like old times. We had such a great time. How many years did we do the show?
We did the show 2 years, just you and I.
Just 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
I was thinking about 3 years. But
obviously been on as a guest a couple of times this season. So.
It's a lot of fun because now we've added the television element, and it's a little uncomfortable because I've always done radio.
Right.
And now it's just like, whoa, I'm in front of a camera. So this is really neat. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we always have a fun time on the show. Of course, Tyler is on assignment this week. He's up at the Kentucky Speedway for last night's Camping World Truck Series race. He'll be back in the saddle with us next week. I'll be on vacation next week, so it'll be you and Tyler in here next week. Please try not to ruin the show. The two of you.
It's going to get ugly.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you right now. Today may get ugly, but next week I can tell you right now, I'm going to be on the show with Tyler. I'm not as nice to him as you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I see this show, and I watch it every week, and you guys are somewhat cordial, and I'm not going to do it. I won't do it with him. He's just not a nice guy.
Speaking of ugly, my fantasy team at Daytona last week was ugly. The big one caught up a bunch of my drivers. I know that some of your drivers were in it, and I think everybody that Tyler talked about on the show last week was in the crash too last week.
It helped me out. I ended up 315th place. I did have a couple of guys caught up in it, but one of them was Regan Smith, who started dead last, so he actually did better than where he started. So I didn't really lose points with Regan Smith. But also I had Dale Earnhardt Jr., who got damaged from the track, but he was still able to move on. So, yeah, it was I had some of it, but some people who had Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Harvick and some of those guys, it's like, oh, I had to feel for you because you had to. Yeah, you had to finish way back there in the back.
Yeah, I struggled. I was in the 600s last week. So
is that where you finished in the 600s?
Not very good.
I want to say Tyler was back there, too. I think he was like 800 or something other.
We were both back there in the back, so at least we're consistent. Coming up on today's show, we'll obviously make our picks for the Quaker State 400 coming up at Kentucky Speedway on Saturday night. We'll have our picks from Ringo Fowler, the Fantasy Chicken. And I'm being told in my ear by producer Daryl that Tyler will actually join us on the phone.
Oh, he will? Okay,
yes.
Great.
So you have that to look forward to. Like I said, don't turn it off yet. We're going to take a commercial break. We'll come back. On the other side, we'll make our picks for the Quaker State 400 coming up on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
Got a question or opinion about your fantasy lineup? Give us a call at 8444-ASK-MRN, and it may get used on next week's show. The Inside Line will return in a moment.
O'Reilly. Keep your windows clean and see clearer with Gunk Glass Cleaner. Right now at O'Reilly Auto Parts, buy one bottle of Gunk Glass Cleaner and get one free. Gunk's high-performance ingredients clean glass and hard surfaces without leaving a film or residue. Gunk Glass Cleaner, buy one, get one free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. Restrictions apply. See store for details.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Motor Racing Network has always been your source for motorsports coverage when you couldn't be at the track. Now, never miss another minute of our breathtaking coverage with the MRN app, available on your iPhone or Android device. This free app delivers all the latest news, locates nearby MRN stations, streams your favorite programs, and is your home for live Sprint Cup practice and qualifying action. Search MRN in the App Store or on Google Play. It's the Motor Racing Network at your fingertips, and it's available for free right now.
If you haven't checked out MRN.com's exclusive online programming, you've missed a lot. MRN Motorsports Monday. Review and preview the NASCAR weekends. Winged Nation talk winged sprint cars. The latest from the NHRA. On the straight line. Dirt, late model, modified, and big block modified talk. Slinging dirt. NASCAR regional, local, and international series on NASCAR Coast to Coast. Exclusive original online motorsports talk on MRN.com. We now return to the Inside Line.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires here on a Friday on MRN.com. Robbie Mays, Rich Culbreth in studio with us this week. Rich, we're going to Kentucky Speedway this weekend, which is a racetrack the Sprint Cup Series has raced at for 5 years. The Truck Series, the Xfinity Series have been racing there since the early 2000s. But this weekend in Kentucky, a little new wrinkle, new pavement, new configuration, a totally new racetrack for the Cup Series, the Truck Series, and the Xfinity Series this weekend.
What you said was all right, except little.
Yeah.
It is not little. This is a big deal. In fact, it's a completely different track, and trying to pick drivers for it's going to be pretty tough.
Earlier this week, we caught up with Kyle Busch, and he actually talked about going to Kentucky Speedway, and he talked about how he feels about going to new tracks that have recently been repaved.
I don't like repaves at all. I'll admit, I struggle on repaves. I did win the last race here at Kentucky Speedway before they repaved it. I won the last race at Michigan Speedway before they repaved it. So I have a history. Bristol, I won the last race at Bristol before they repaved it. So I have a history of being really good before they tear it all up and screw it all up for me. So, this is certainly one of those places that we all did not want to see repaved. But, with some of the circumstances that we had with trying to dry the surface during rain delays, essentially the weepers were just so bad that we could never get it dry enough. I mean, the racetrack was dry, but it was still weeping water hours later, days later, and that's frustrating for us drivers trying to be able to put on a good show for the race fans, and of course the race fans also seeing the surface of the track dry, but yet there's spots that we can't go racing because there's water coming through. So hopefully that those situations have been well worked and well rectified, and that we won't have that situation going forward here, even when the track does age and get older.
So I guess Kyle Busch is not looking forward to the repave this weekend?
Didn't sound like it. And if you believe in trends, do not go with Kyle Busch this weekend. But that's only if you believe in trends. But there's trends that work in his advantage. A lot of things about Kyle Busch that you can look at, like the mile-and-a-half tracks that we've raced on this year. We've been at 5 of them, and he has finished in the top 5 on 4 of them, and he's won 2 of them. And so you got to look at that. We talked about this before the show, Robbie, and I said you got to look at qualifying because track position is going to be key at Kentucky Speedway. If you've got a guy like Kyle Busch that's starting from the pole, by all means, start Kyle Busch. If he's starting in the top 5, I'm pretty sure you're going to be safe at starting him. But like you said, the trends go whenever they repave a track. Think about when Kansas, when they repaved that track, he struggled for many
Well, he wasn't
years.
very good at Kansas before they repaved the track either.
Right, but when they paved it, it was not good at all.
Yeah.
And so I know that Kentucky is not like Kansas, but in a way it might be. And so who knows? And like we said a while ago, it's not a little change. It is a big change with what they've done to this track.
Kyle Busch with an 8.4 average finish and 2 wins on mile-and-a-half racetrack and he does have the highest driver rating at Kentucky Speedway with a 129.1. So, Rich, let's talk about drivers who are going to be on our team this weekend, and I think both of us have one common theme, Team Penske.
Oh, man. You asked me a couple of weeks ago what team is on top right now, and I said Joe Gibbs Racing. They're still on top, but not by much. And I was pretty much right because it looks like Penske is now the team that you want to start week in and week out. You want Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski, especially for this weekend. But as we're talking about this week, let's start with Brad Keselowski. He's won this track twice. Again, it's a completely different track, but the man knows how to get around Kentucky Speedway. I'm going to have him on my team this week.
Yeah, I've also got Brad on my team this week. He's at $27 if you're just picking him up. The driver rating is second best to Kyle Busch, and I like that number. It's a 117.8. It's a little further down the list from where Kyle Busch is on that driver rating number, but it's still pretty good. So I've got Brad Keselowski on my team this week. I've also picked up Joey Logano this week for 26.25, and the part of the reason why I wanted the 2-team Penske drivers, and you can agree with me or not, is because the 2 times that we have run the low downforce package this year, the All-Star race at Charlotte and at Michigan, Team Penske was the star of both of those races.
There's no doubt. Looking at last year, and it was a different aero package last year. Brad Keselowski won 60 or led 62 laps, and that's something else that I'm looking at, because look at everyone that started Brad Keselowski at Daytona. He led 115 laps. And they got all those bonus points, and that's something that you want to think about. Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, those guys are going to get up there, and they're going to lead a ton of laps, especially if they get a great qualifying position later today and for tomorrow night's race. So, yeah, you definitely want that. I mean, you're looking at other guys like Kevin Harvick. Now, Kevin's not on my team, but a guy like Kevin Harvick or Tony Stewart, those guys that are they're not up there leading all these laps, but they get you a solid finish at the end of the race. But
sure.
I want those guys that want to be at front every single lap, and that's what you're going to get out of Penske Racing.
And if you take a look at the all-time lap leaders in the Sprint Cup Series at Kentucky Speedway, Kyle Busch is first. Brad Keselowski is second. There you see Joey Logano down the list a little bit in fifth. But 5 drivers pretty much have led most of the laps here at Kentucky Speedway over the last 5 years. So I've got Brad Keselowski. I've got Joey Logano on my team. Who else do you have on your team?
I like Matt Kenseth. He's got the second best average at 4.6. He's not finished any worse than 7th out of the 5 times that we've been there. So I think Matt Kenseth getting back on and I'm not saying at Joe Gibbs Racing that they're bad at this time, but they're just not as dominant as they were earlier in the season. They're still there.
Yeah.
But out of the 4 drivers, it's either between Carl Edwards or Matt Kenseth. In fact, I struggled between the two because I think Carl Edwards he's going to have a good week. But Matt Kenseth, since he's got that best average, I think I'm going to go with him on that.
Yeah, if you look at Joe Gibbs Racing over the last few races, Matt has had 4 top 10s, 14th place in there as well, but 2 finishes outside of the top 20 the last couple of races. I think they have struggled a little bit. On my list, I also have Chase Elliott again this week. He's had 2 bad races outside of the top 20, but I'm not worried because those were 2 outliers. They were the road course and restrictor
You've got
plate
him
track.
locked in at a very low rate,
Yeah.
and you did right by hanging on to him. But come on, it was Daytona and Sonoma.
Right.
Those are somewhat wild card events, and so, yeah, I think Chase Elliott is probably someone that's going to do well this weekend.
Yeah, also rounding out my team this week, I've got Ryan Blaney, and also I had a little bit of money left over, so I got Casey Mears, a little bit higher last place driver on there. He's at $925, so I'm out. I've got $100 spent this week, so I'm tapped out on that.
Yep.
Go through the rest of your team.
The rest of my team, David Reagan, who had an 8th place run at that track in 2011, and Landon Castle, who I've started almost the entire season. He's really good at qualifying poorly, but finishing like in the low 20s to mid 20s, and that will get you a lot of points. And he's very cheap. I mean, he's like $10.
Sure, yeah. So rounding now my team again: Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, and Casey Mears.
Matt Kenseth, Brad Keselowski, Joey Logano. We're kind of on the same page with that one. With David Reagan and Landon Castle, that's my team for this Saturday night.
Okay, we'll make our race winner picks later on in the show. Let's take a break now. When we come back, for some reason, Tyler Burnett is on the phone. He will join us next on the Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires.
Tyler and Robbie will be right back to talk more fantasy racing here on the Inside Line.
Whatever you drive, wherever you go, Hercules Tires will get you there, whether you're running on dirt or running a job. Our dependable, high-quality tires are the perfect fit for your needs. For unmatched value, selection, and warranty with industry-leading road hazard protection, there's only one choice: Hercules Tires. To learn more, visit HerculesTire.com or call 800-677-9535. Hercules Tires, right on our strength.
Stay up to date with the latest news from the NASCAR Garage weekdays on NASCAR Today, midday.
We can enhance the fans' experience, and I think that's what we really need to zero in on and provide.
Hear from the drivers and teams as they chase the 2016 championship trophy.
Change is good in our sport. It re-energizes people, makes everybody, step up to the plate, so to speak.
NASCAR Today, midday, weekdays on the Motor Racing Network, your source for NASCAR news.
Missed the race this weekend?
Danica Patrick is up in flames. Home Menard will crash.
Or just want to relive the best moments?
That was an amazing finish.
Catch all of the action and highlights right here.
Jimmy Johnson gets nailed, and it's a big one.
It's the Sprint Cup replay getting you on the fast track to victory lane.
Woo! Good job! Good job! Kansas, yes!
Don't be left out of the conversation Monday at work. Listen to the Sprint Cup replay on MRN.com Mondays at 7 a.m. and 1 p.m.
Let's talk more fantasy racing on The Inside Line.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires. Last week at Daytona, it was Donuzak number 2 who was the best finisher in the MRN Inside Line Fantasy League. We're up to 1,086 players, I believe it is.
Yeah. Donuzak, I tell you, that was a great pick having Brad Keselowski as the winner and Ford as the manufacturer on winning.
Yeah, good call. Main Star still leading our league right now. Rich 1 is up to 7th. I haven't figured out how you've done this yet.
No, I was at 7th last week, and I continue to stay in 7th.
Okay.
I lost some ground to some of those guys, but there was a couple of guys that was directly in front of me. I've closed down, so I'm just a handful of points out of 5th place. So I'm hoping to have a good week in Kentucky.
Well, make sure to join our league, NASCAR.com, Inside Line Fantasy League. Play along with all of us here on the Inside Line. Time now for a segment we like to call Under a Rock or Tyler.
Do you live your life up under a rock? Or are you Tyler Burnett?
And let's go to the guest
I'm
line.
one of the singers on that, by the way.
Let's go to the guest line, bring in the co-host of the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show, Tyler Burnett. Tyler, number 1, where are you and why aren't you at work today?
I am at work. Unlike you guys just sitting around talking fantasy, I'm in Kentucky producing a race. So I don't. How am I supposed to do an under the rock in a hard place when I can't even see what's going on?
Well, it's not like you would know who it is anyway.
Exactly. Let's go ahead and get that segment out of the way first. We have an audio clip. This is a theme song to a popular television show. That's your clue. You have to guess the name of the show. So, Daryl, let's hit it.
Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name.
That makes me so happy.
I know. I love this show.
All
right, Tyler.
Playing?
Yes.
I couldn't hear it.
Okay. All right. We'll give you a pass this week.
You want to be where everybody knows your name.
Okay.
You want to go where you know.
It's Cheers.
Whoa!
I am shocked.
I got it.
I can't believe it.
Whoa!
I can't believe it.
Absolutely amazing.
How the heck did I know that?
I don't know.
I don't know how you pulled it out either. And, you got to give the people some insight on why we do this Under the Rock segment. Tyler, you've worked with us for 2 years now. It wasn't long that we found out that you're really not that very good at pop culture. So we would say someone's name that we assume that everybody knows who we're talking about. Like you say, I don't know, you didn't know who Burt Reynolds was. And so
last week he thought Patrick Stewart was Howie Mandel.
Yeah.
So
and then we were talking.
I just picked the bald guy. I didn't know who it was.
You didn't know who it was. Okay, you didn't know who that was. But in the past that we've talked about pop culture guys in this, around the hallways, and you don't know who anybody is. And so we developed this Under a Rock segment. So we wanted to get everybody involved with your, I won't say ignorance. Yes. Ignorance when it comes to pop culture. Yeah. I'm not saying you're ignorant. You're just ignorant when it comes to pop culture.
Well, considering I'm about 20 years younger than most of the people that you guys are talking about.
But Ryan Reynolds is a guy. We were talking about Ryan Reynolds the other day in the hallway. You said you didn't know who that was. And I'm like, oh, here's a guy that's, he's had the #1 movie a few weeks ago. I say a few weeks ago, about a month ago with Deadpool, and you didn't know who he was. So it's like,
I don't know. I thought you called me to talk about fantasy racing.
All right,
fine. Oh, boy. That's where the show is going today, folks. All right, Tyler, Kentucky, new asphalt, new racing surface there. We've talked about some guys who have been strong there in the past. Who do you have on your team this week for Kentucky?
Well, you mentioned the repave, and the way I went about picking my team this week is a little bit different than I've done in the past. And it's the way I've done it is a combination of looking back at past first races at repave racetracks, and then also looking at the low downforce package we had in Michigan. Now, I'm going to throw some stats at you, and Robbie, you probably already know these already. You might not. I don't know. Kyle Busch, his numbers at Kentucky are pretty ridiculous. But at the same time, when we repave a racetrack, Kyle Busch is really not that great at the track coming to it, and that's coming straight from the horse's mouth and audio that he had about a month ago at the Kentucky Tire Test. Now, what's interesting about Kyle Busch is that he has won a race 3 times the race before a track has been repaved, and that was Michigan, Bristol in 2012, and then, of course, the Kentucky race before this one was repaved last year. So I think Kyle Busch is going to be solid. I don't know if he's a guy that I'm going to put on my fantasy team, but that's an interesting stat there with Kyle Busch, that he is not really that great when we repave a racetrack. However, if you look at some guys who are good at new surfaces, Matt Kenseth is one of them. In Kansas in 2012, he won the race the first time the track was repaved. And then he finished third in Michigan in 2012. That was the race that Dale Earnhardt Jr. won. So he has 2 podium finishes in repaved racetracks. So Matt Kenseth is on my team. Also another guy that I like, and this might surprise you a little bit, but he was good with the low downforce package in Michigan, and that was Tony Stewart. And in those repaved races at Kansas and Michigan in 2012, Smoke had a second-place finish at Michigan and 5th at Kansas. So that's why I have Tony Stewart on my team this week. So those are some of the guys I'm looking at. I like Kevin Harvick, 10.4 average finish in the last 5 races at Kentucky. But Harvick is a guy that hasn't been all that great at repaved racetracks, but I think he's going to be good this weekend. And then Jimmy Johnson could be a guy you look at. He's not on my team. Just the 5, I'll throw them out real quickly, and then you guys can argue with me if you want. I have Kenseth, Stewart, Kyle Larson, I think is going to be good. And then I have David Reagan to round out my field. So Harvick, Kenseth, Larson, Stewart, and David Reagan.
Nicely done.
I'm surprised that you don't have any Team Penske cars on your team this week.
Like I said, I went from a combination of, repave racetracks, and then I know Joey Logano was good at Michigan, so maybe that's a guy, and Keselowski is good at Kentucky. But I just decided to go a different route because I'm slowly slipping in the standings right now, how bad I was at Daytona.
We've noticed.
So I need to pick up some spots here and do something different for a change.
So Rich and I talked about this in the last segment, and a few weeks ago when we had him on before the off weekend, we asked him who's the best team in the sport right now, and we all still agreed that Joe Gibbs Racing was the best team in the sport right now. Is Joe Gibbs Racing still the best team in the sport right now, in your opinion?
I think you can't really knock them off the pedestal at this point, though right now Penske has shown a little dominance here in the last couple of races, of course, with Logano winning at Michigan and Brad winning at Daytona. How about that performance from Brad Keselowski? I know we probably shouldn't talk all that about Daytona, but, dude, Brad is slowly becoming one of the best restrictor plate in the garage.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the last 3 or 4 races at restrictor plate tracks, he's been pretty dang dominant.
Yeah, leading 150 laps of that race the other night. Anybody that had him on his team, on their team, they did well.
Yeah.
And
that wasn't me.
Yeah. Hey, did you have a guy that finished? Any guy that finished above 30th place? You had Joey Logano, who finished 4th.
I did.
Did you have anybody else other than him that finished top 30?
No, in Landon Castle, he turned about, 10 laps there, blew up or whatever at the beginning of the race. And
No, he didn't. He had an electrical issue, and I wanted to talk about Landon Castle because I gave you the suggestion last week to start Landon Castle.
Your fault.
Yeah, well, 20 laps in, he had an electrical issue, but he did get back out on the track, and yes, he passed all those guys that were caught up in the crash and ended up finishing 31st. So you got positive points from Landon Castle, although it wasn't very many. So
yeah,
I love Landon Castle.
He finished last.
No, he did not. He finished 31st. Landon Castle finished 31st. I can't remember who finished dead last, but Landon Castle did okay for you. He didn't do the best though. You got to go back and check your stats.
Some other good plate racers that were caught up in the big one. So that's just my luck at plate track.
Oh, this show is going off the rails.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? One other thing before we let you go, Tyler, is that no one has said anything about Martin Truex Jr. Martin Truex Jr. has led the most laps in the last 3 mile-and-a-half tracks. And he led a NASCAR record of 588 laps in the Coca-Cola 600. He is somewhat miles.
Yeah.
He is someone that you definitely want to think about. If he qualifies well, if he does qualify on the pole or in the top 2 or 3 positions, you might want to get Martin Truex Jr. on your team, other than the Penske guys.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think Carl Edwards is a guy that you probably can look at too. in the 19 car. Him and Truex have been pretty dang good at a mile-and-a-half racetrack. You mentioned Truex. When I was talking about the repaved racetracks, Kansas in 2012, Martin Truex Jr. finished second in that race behind Matt Kenseth. So that might be another stat you look at. I definitely like Truex this weekend. But I still think that Matt Kenseth is going to be a guy to look out for this weekend.
All right,
Tyler, who's your winner?
I'm going to take Jimmy Johnson.
Interesting.
I know that's
he talks about everybody, and then all of a sudden it's Jimmy Johnson. Go ahead.
A big surprise, and I'll tell you why, Rich.
All right.
Out of those 3 repaved races that I looked at, Jimmy Johnson was the only driver to finish in the top 10 in all 3 of those races: Michigan, Bristol, and Kansas in 2012. And he's pretty good at Kentucky. I mean, a 7.4 average finish is not bad. I think that Johnson probably has more experience in the garage right now to adjust to a new racetrack like this, and I think Johnson wins the race on Saturday night.
I like the Jimmy Johnson pick. Out of the 5 mile-and-a-half tracks, I'll make this quick. Out of the 5 mile-and-a-half tracks that we've been at this year, he has finished in the top 5 on 4 of those races. Only 2 guys have done that, and that is Jimmy Johnson and Kyle Busch. So, no, Jimmy's a great pick. I agree.
All sorts of knowledge here today. All right, Tyler, have a good weekend, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. You'll be here with Rich next week. I'm on vacation next week, so have fun.
All right, be good, boys. Thanks for dressing up today, Rich.
Oh, thank you.
He can't even see you.
No.
Tyler Burnett, the co-host of the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show. We'll take another break. When we come back, Rich and I will have our winners, and we'll also get some knowledge from Rango Fowler. That's coming up next on the Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires.
We'll be right back in just a moment to talk more fantasy racing with Tyler and Robbie here on the Inside Line.
O'Reilly. If it's time to do some much-needed maintenance on your vehicle, stop by your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store during Maintain and Save Days. Whether your car needs oil and a filter, antifreeze, new shocks, or a new battery, O'Reilly Auto Parts has the low prices on the parts you need to help you keep your vehicle running at its best. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. MRN's Winged Nation, presented by Sage Fruit on MAV TV every Saturday at 9:30 a.m. and again at 12:30 p.m. Steve Post and Ashley Strimmy give you a full half hour of sprint car news and interviews with the biggest names from the world of outlaws, ASCS, All-Star Circuit of Champions, Pennsylvania, Knoxville, the West Coast, and all dirt tracks in between. MRN's Winged Nation on MAV TV, presented by Sage Fruit, Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. Eastern on MAV TV. MRN On Demand. Listen or watch when you want and where you want. Find all of MRN's original programs in the Media Center at MRN.com, as well as YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Race Day Nation on iHeartRadio. Find NASCAR Live, Motorsports Monday, Winged Nation, NASCAR Coast to Coast, Pod Tracks, Slingin' Dirt, The Inside Line, and The Straight Line. Motorsports programs when you want, where you want. MRN On Demand. Welcome back to the Inside Line.
Welcome back to the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show, presented by Hercules Tires. I'm Robbie Mays. He's Rich Culbreth. Of course, the fonts at the bottom of the screen right there just told you that. All right, Rich, last segment of the show, and we've been teasing this all day. It's time for our Rango Fowler picks for the Kentucky Speedway. Briefly, who is Rango Fowler?
All right, Rango Fowler is a chicken that we keep in the back. We have some satellites and stuff back there, but it's fenced in, and we do keep a chicken that helps with picks for fantasy. He really helped out a lot last week, with trying to pick guys for Daytona, because it's hard to pick drivers, at a place like that, because you never know who's going to get caught up in the crash. But we've decided to make Rango Fowler, this chicken that we have, a part of the show, because he makes picks just as good as you guys.
Yeah, the team that we drew out of a hat last week actually finished 75 points higher than my team did. All right, here we go. Let's.
Well, he's Johnny Carson all of a sudden.
Let's open the. Because I know who Johnny Carson is. Tyler wouldn't know. So.
So here's what Rango Fowler, the fantasy chicken that we have here at MRN, who his picks are.
Okay.
And who do we have?
Okay, Rango Fowler's picks for Kentucky. We have number 17, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. We have number 18, Kyle Busch. We have number 34, Chris Buescher. We have number 2, Brad Keselowski. And driver number 5 is Kevin Harvick. The winner for Rango is also Kevin Harvick, and he has picked Chevrolet as his manufacturer bonus for the weekend.
Obviously, chickens can't talk.
Right.
Wait, except that one. But
Except that one.
chickens can't talk, but he does make his marks on numbers that are on the ground,
Yeah.
and that's how we select these numbers from Rango Fowler, the fantasy chicken. So who's your winner? We've gone way off the rail.
We have gone way off the rail. I forgot who my winner was. All right, I'm going Brad Keselowski this weekend. I'll take him to go back-to-back and pick up another win here in 2016. I know his spotter, Joey Meyer, watching the show right now, is saying, please don't do this, Robbie. But I'm going with Brad Keselowski.
And the other guy that we've been talking about with Penske Racing, Joey Logano, I'm going to go with him as my winner this weekend. And normally I like to hedge my bets and make it a different manufacturer on the winner, but I think I'm going to go with Ford. I'm going to have Ford on there as a manufacturer, and Joey Logano, I'm just going to put it all on number 22 for this weekend.
Okay. Those are our picks. Those are our winners. We've, of course, heard from Rango Fowler, the Fantasy Chicken. Coming up this weekend, all of the action can be heard from our friends at the Performance Racing Network. They've got coverage of Kentucky Speedway this weekend. They've also got coverage at New Hampshire next weekend. MRN's next race will be in 2 weeks at the Eldora Speedway. So looking forward to the dirt race. I'd like to thank Daryl Smith, our producer, Brian Yeswich running the show for us today, graphics-wise. And we'd also like to thank Tyler Burnett. So for everyone here at MRN, he's Rich, I'm Robbie. We'll see you next week here on the Inside Line Fantasy Racing Show presented by Hercules Tires.
You've been listening to The Inside Line, presented by Hercules Tires. Stream us every Friday on MotorRacingNetwork.com or on the MRN app. The Inside Line is also available on demand at the MRN.com Media Center, or download it through iTunes or Stitcher. The Inside Line is a production of the Motor Racing Network.